Creativity isn't a linear process, it's cyclical. What are the gifts that came into your life? What have you realized about yourself? All of these things are the true fruits of your labor. Hello and welcome back to Remember Why You're Here, a podcast for seekers and sensitives where you can relax, receive, reconnect to yourself, and remember that most important thing of all, why you're here. I'm Asia Suler, author, earth intuitive, and teacher, and someone who's very much taking my own medicine this month. And what I mean by that is that at the beginning of this month, for my intuitive reading for June, I talked about this month as one of creative impulses, following the creative impulse, really letting your creativity out, to let your creative life force nourish you, to allow yourself to play with what is coming through for you, to really dabble in authentic self-expression. I've been going for it this month, specifically over on the new Substack that I started, Remember Why You're Here. It is a companion piece to the podcast. It's a place where I've been sharing a lot more writings than I've been sharing, especially on social media. I've been really kind of like opening the floodgates over there. I've been opening up the inner sanctum, and it's been so special to connect with some of you over in that space. So if you're interested to see the way in which I've been taking my own medicine and sharing in deeper and more intimate ways and more connective ways, you can head on over to Remember Why You're Here, the Substack, and I would absolutely love to connect with you there. So for today, I wanted to revisit this video that I made a couple of years ago, this transmission that came through a couple of years ago called the life cycle of your ideas. And really, when I first recorded this video, I was kind of in a winter of my creativity, and I really needed to be reminded that there is a life cycle to our creativity, to our ideas. And so it's helpful for me right now as I'm really in like I don't know what I would call. I'm like throwing a bomb of wildflowers out on the side of the road, and I'm just seeing what blooms. And it feels so good. Actually, it feels so good to allow myself to be a little like less controlled or structured or strategic, just being like, we're just going to seed the whole side of this highway and see what blooms. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm curious to hear about where you are at. So let's dive into this recording where I talk about the life cycle of your ideas, and you will get a very clear picture as to where you are at in your own process of creativity right now, whether you are in seeding, fruiting, harvesting, composting, wherever you are at is a rich place to be. And this recording will help you pinpoint exactly where you are. Creativity is a mystery, and yet one of the greatest feelings on earth is being in the midst of a creative flow. But creativity isn't a linear process. It's cyclical. It's a cycle. And when you can understand where you're at on the cycle, you can know what to expect next. There's lots of different ways to look at the creative cycle, but I love seeing the creative cycle through this lens of the plant cycle, the cycle of seed to fruit. So this will help you understand where you're at with your creations right now. And because you can understand what stage you're in, you can be prepared for what might be coming up for you right now and what's coming next. So let's start with the seed phase. This is probably one of the most exciting phases. It's when the idea first comes in. This is when you have that spark, that ignition. This is when you get all those seed packets in the mail, or you're going through the seed catalog and you're just so excited. You order all the seeds, you get them all online, and you think, yes, I have endless ambition and excitement for this idea. So we all know this phase. We all love this phase. Many of us want to stay in this phase, but this phase always seems to move on. So what comes next? Germination. Now, this is a little bit more work, right? We get all these seed packets in the mail and we think, yeah, I'm going to grow 10 different varieties of tomatoes. But then when it comes down to it, we realize, okay, actually, I only have space for 5 different varieties and I only have time to tend these different varieties. But germination is also still a fun part of the idea cycle and the idea process. So in the germination cycle, this is often when we're taking those first seeds, those first inspirations, and we're laying the groundwork. We're digging them in, we're watching them grow, we're seeing all these seedlings come up. But here's where we often hit one of the first roadblocks, and that's thinning. So when you are growing seeds, one of the first things you're going to have to do is thin your seedlings. If you seed a whole tray, what you'll notice is that many of those seeds will come up. That's awesome and exciting, but you cannot grow all of those seeds in your garden. You're going to have to choose the strongest ones and thin out the ones that is just going to crowd out the plants themselves. So the same is true with your creative ideas, with the life cycle of an idea. You need to be willing to weed out the stuff that might be growing, might have taken root, but ultimately is crowding out your vision for what you want this creation to look like or what this garden is asking to be. So this is one of the first challenges that come up on the life cycle of a creative idea, is this need to prune, this need to choose what you're going to focus on, because we can't grow everything in our gardens. We can't make every idea come to fruition. But we do often need to sow our wild oats in order to see what sticks. So it's okay in this phase to be trying a bunch of different things based on your idea to see what works. But you do also need to be willing to cut out what's not working at that time. So when I was writing my book, Mirrors in the Earth, I had all these different stories that I knew wanted to be in the book. I had these ideas and inspirations come in. And when I was in the germination phase, it was really exciting because I was gathering these stories and I was putting them all into place. But at some point I had to get real with myself. Not all of these stories can be in the book. A, they're not all going to fit. And B, they don't all flow together for the greater narrative arc that I was looking for. So I had to get real and cut some of those stories, cut some of those whole chapters, because it didn't actually feed the greater vision of my book. The next phase is the maturation. So this is where the rubber meets the road. And this is for many people their least favorite part of the creative process. In the garden, the maturation moment of the life cycle of that seed, when you transplant the seedling out into the garden and you take care of it, this is a very exciting moment. But often the glow starts to fade once that plant gets in the ground. This is where the hard work comes in. This is where you have to stay on top of pests, diseases. You have to keep the plant weeded and mulched and watered. In the growing year, this would be like the height of summer. And as any gardener will tell you, this is kind of the most miserable time to be gardening in some ways. You're not yet to the fruits of your labor, but you're not in that beginning phase when everything's so fresh and exciting and manageable. Often this is when things start to feel unmanageable, overwhelming, tedious. Stay with it. You might be in this phase right now with your idea or your creation where you feel like I'm just plugging away. Where is this going? This is so much work. I know I felt that way for years with my book, Mirrors in the Earth. It was all about showing up every day to sit down in that desk and write. And for me, it really helped to set a time frame. Like, I'm going to write for 1 hour every day this year. 1 hour, Monday through Friday, I'm going to show up at that desk and I'm going to do the work. And the same strategy helps me in the garden. I normally say, okay, 1 hour when the sun's lower in the sky and it's a little less intense, for 1 hour every day, 5 days a week, I'm just going to get out there, do a little bit of gardening, do a little bit of weeding, do a little bit of mulching. And the thing is, it adds up. So oftentimes this stage can feel overwhelming because when we neglect it, like when we neglect a garden, it can get out of hand. If you do a little bit every day, this phase is going to feel so much more manageable. You don't have to have your creation complete in a week. This is not going to be the kind of thing that you normally will work on in one day and finish your opus. No, this is something you need to spend a little bit of time each day helping grow, helping to flourish, helping to come into the next stage of its creation. So what is that next stage? Well, in the garden, that next stage would be the flowering of this plant. Now, this is an exciting moment. It's also a very vulnerable moment. So when is the flowering in the life cycle of a creative project or an idea? That's when you start to share it with the world. That's when you're like, okay, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to put this out there in some way. So for me, when I wrote my book, this is when the book came out into the world. It's when it first hit the shelves. The thing about flowering is it's often when we plant the seeds, it's often the thing we're most excited about. We think, oh, well, when that plant flowers, everything in my life's going to be perfect. My garden's going to be full of roses. I'm not going to have any problems anymore. The reality is when that plant flowers, you kind of realize that the whole purpose, actually, of growing this plant was to be with it every step of the way. That flowering is just one part of the journey, and that it isn't even the end destination at all. Flowering in the life cycle of a plant is a very vulnerable time. Everything has to go just right in order for that flower to cross-pollinate with other flowers, to have its seeds develop, to move on to the next phase of its existence. So if you're feeling really vulnerable at this stage, know that it's okay. It's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to feel fragile when you put your creation out into the world. When I garden, oftentimes the flowering phase of the garden is a really fragile phase. I have to baby the plants during that time. Some plants need a lot of extra care. For example, in the growing of the orchids that make vanilla beans, those vanilla beans often have to be hand pollinated. So people who grow these orchids will hand pollinate each one of them in order for the vanilla beans to grow. Some of our creations are like this. They need high touch. They need this extra gentleness, love, and support. And you might need that too at this phase. So if you're getting ready to put whatever your creation is out there and you're feeling a little bit fragile and you're wondering, why am I feeling like this when I was looking forward to it the whole time? Know that this is such a natural part of the process. In the life cycle of a plant, the flower is when the plant fulfills its mission. It is able to finally give its gifts to the world, and those gifts are spectacular, right? They're designed to be attractive. They're designed to call in the pollinators, to create more, to gather interest. And I guarantee you, your project is too. And this flowering phase is all about bringing in those energies that are ready to interact with this idea you have so lovingly nurtured. But this is not the last step in the cycle. The last step is the fruit or seed of this creation. So once you put your idea out there, once you share it with the world and cross-pollination can happen, then the fruits of your labor come in. Now, when gardeners are planting the seeds, normally they're looking for either two things, flowers or fruit. And this is often the goal, right? So if you're growing tomatoes, you're like, I want bushels and bushels of fruit. And you often think to yourself, this is the marker of true success, is how much fruit I grew. But I'm going to tell you, over my years of gardening and over my years as a creative, I have realized that what's really successful is that I learned along the way, that I had an experience, that I showed up every day for this, and that the process of creation taught me something about myself, that the process of gardening taught me something about myself. The same is true for the fruits of your labor. This is often the moment that people expect to be overwhelming in its bounty. Once I put this idea out there in the world, people are going to rush in. All the opportunities are going to be there. I'm going to have a pantry full of food for many winters to come. Because we place such high expectations on the yield of our creative projects, it can sometimes feel disappointing when you put something out there and Oprah isn't knocking at your door. This is just the way of it. And how we deal with this is by changing our focus, that it's not so much about quantity, it's quality. What are the quality of the connections that you made through seeing this idea to its full fruition? What are the gifts that came into your life? What have you realized about yourself? What have you realized about your creative process? All of these things are the true fruits of your labor, because ultimately we aren't following these visions. We aren't putting these inspirations out in the world for affirmation or accolades. We're doing it because it's a soul journey. It's a soul request. Part of our spirit knew it was important for us to go on this journey. The same is true for gardening. We are called to garden not because we want X amount of fruit in the pantry. We're called to garden because it's a process of coming to know the land, of coming to know ourselves, and of coming to know these plants, the creations that we're here to tend. That said, the harvest of this time can also be magnificent. So if you are having bounty come your way, this is a time when you learn how to receive, when you learn how to let it in, how to be nourished. You can kick back and relax and just let it all flow to you. And the other side of the harvest is the true final phase of a creative project, which is the compost. No creative project or no idea is complete until you reach this phase. The compost is when you can take a look at the whole season of your creation and really look at what worked, what didn't, what did you love about the experience, what could be different next time, what do you want to take with you versus what do you want to let go. This compost is important. In the aftermath of an experience of bringing an idea to light, you need to take this time to look at it and understand, what did I like about that process? What did that bring to me? What do I want to bring with me into the next creative project? And what do I want to let go? This can often be a fallow feeling time where you're just kind of taking stock of where you've been. Maybe the pantry is full with fruit at this time and you're just going to kick back and see who you are now and what wants to come through next. I know that when I put my book Mirrors in the Earth out into the world, I was 5 months postpartum. And though I was very excited to put energy behind this book, once the book was launched, I was ready to take a step back and really look and see, really pay attention to what had worked for me and what didn't, to take that time to rest, be in this new phase of my life, and really give myself spaciousness for what is going to come up next. I wrote that book in a particular way. It took me 10 years to write, and often in the beginning, I didn't know what I was writing. I didn't know what the overarching theme was. It really took me the years of writing it to understand what was trying to come through. Now, I loved that process, and I'm excited to try a different process next time. Like, what would it be like to have a full idea and outline of the book when you first start writing? It's a different experience. It's not better or worse. It's just different. So for me, it felt really nourishing to compost some of that process, to let it go and to make space for what was ready to come in next. So where are you at in your creative cycle right now? Do you have an idea that you're working with? Where in this season of growing is this idea? Do you have some clarity on that now? And if you haven't read my book, Mirrors in the Earth, yet, don't wait any longer. Go get yourself a copy. That book is such an awesome guide for you in your creative process, in your process of unfurling. I've loved talking a little bit about what it was like creating it behind the scenes, and I'm so excited to keep sharing this book with like-minded hearts like yourself. So I am truly curious, where are you at in the life cycle of your ideas? What is coming up for you this month? This month that at the beginning of it, I very much implored you to follow your creative impulse, whatever that is. The creative impulse, though, can be planting seeds, just willy-nilly being like a Johnny Appleseed, or it can also mean being like, I'm going to rip this up. It is time for this to be done. So something new can take root. So I'm really curious to hear how this has been unfolding for you this month. I'm going to continue to plant all kinds of seeds over on my Substack, over in the Remember Why You Are Here space, and I would love for you to enter that garden there. So as we move into the last week or so of this month of what has felt for me really like this creative explosion. It might feel a little different for you, but as we move out of June and the next little bit and into July, I'm really curious if you can just allow yourself to be where you are, to allow your creations to flow the way they want to flow, to let yourself find delight in the creative process, wherever you are at in that process. And may this journey of being in relationship to the life cycle of your ideas help you remember that most important thing of all, why you're here.